Good evening and welcome to the planning board meeting of September the 2nd at 7:02 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order by roll call vote. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Brett Piercy. Okay, that's an aye. You're muted with a hand up.
Aye,
Steph
sorry, thank
Harrison.
you.
There you
Lower
go.
left, lower left.
Steph Harrison.
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. Okay, looking at the agenda and reading over the agenda. Added items not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. Are there any items? No, hearing none. Minutes for our last meeting, which was August the 19th. We're going to review those next meeting. We don't have them tonight. So we will have a hearing starting at 7:15. It's a continuation of the update of the A&R approval not required. Form A application and amend Planning Board Regulations 380 Part 2 Article 2 procedures for submission of plans not requiring approval under subdivision control law. The current planning board business items for review and potential warrant articles, ADU updates, A, B, miscellaneous items from ATM 2025, which means annual town meeting of 2025, signed bylaw, which I want to move to our next meeting, potential zoning changes, EA elderly affordable in the northern part of Sherborn, an update on solar districts, and reports on meetings with other boards and entities in the town planner report. That is the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I have a motion to accept the minutes as read.
So moved.
This has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Brett Piercy,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. So seeing that we're starting our hearing at 7:15, Heidi, would you like to take any particular item prior to our meeting?
Yes, I was going to say, let's start just with number one, review potential warrant articles, and I was going to do the ADU updates. So this is specifically, we had the ADU from the state, new guidelines had come out. We always said it was round one at the last ATM because the regulations weren't out. We're trying to line up our bylaws with it. So now we're trying to fine tune it a little more. And one thing that has come up is that we have what the ZBA has decided is a third category of ADUs. And if Steph wants to bring it up in our bylaw, it's under 240, section 3.2, number 27, a low and moderate income. It was listed as apartment, and all our apartments have changed now to be ADUs. What this was, it was created at a time, and Marion, you're on here, which is great. You might have more history. My understanding from what I've gotten from Addie May was this was created when people initially, the ADUs could only be for family, immediate family, and people wanted to have groundskeepers or housekeepers or other people to be able to use it and have a rental income from it. And they created this low and moderate income unit. The goal of this, when you start reading it, it's supposed to be something that would be under our local initiative project and count on our subsidized housing inventory and thus help the town meet our SHI component. In it, it's a very complex law in the sense, or bylaw here, in the sense that the ZBA issues a special permit that is renewed after 2 years, and then will also renew it every year or every 2 years. No more than 5 years is on a renewal, and make sure all these conditions are met. There are quite a few conditions that you have to do and to be put onto the list. And some agency will have to vet the people to make sure the income levels are done. Now, it is considered a special permit ADU, and I think some of the thinking we thought is we had only special permit or by right ADUs, and that this would be a type of special permit ADU, but it's determined, it does not say that this requires owner occupancy. And so it has been argued that this can be rented as well as the first dwelling rented and treated similarly like the by right one from the state. I don't know if that was ever the planning board's intent to do that, because essentially what happens is you can now have 3 dwellings on a property, your main dwelling, a by right state ADU, and then this special permit ADU, which would be the low affordable income one, which would also be rentable. And therefore all 3 properties would be able to be rented. And I think that creates any single family home in Sherborn with a property now can be 3 rental dwellings. So it's something to look at and say, if that's the intent you want to keep with, fine. If not, I think this is something to address on our next town meeting. I don't know if we still need this, because we now have we've added the affordable housing and inclusionary zoning. We have other aspects now that have been added that would help add to our SHI component. This is kind of onerous, because if they do not renew their special permit, what happens to it? It says in here that they would have to remove the kitchen and some other things out of it so that they could not use it as an apartment, but then the structure exists. It opens a lot of questions. And then one thing that came up at the ZBA hearing, so we had an applicant that proposed doing 2 of these on some lots, and they went to the ZBA for the hearing on this last Thursday. And I guess my impression was there would be a deed restriction on this, and I thought that's how you would get on the subsidized housing inventory list. But the ZBA was questioning whether the special permit was enough. I don't know if that's going to be enough for the state to accept being on it, because on the application to be included in the state subsidized housing inventory list, it states right on it that it's, a deed restriction or the legal document for 30 years or some long time period. And I don't think a 2 to 5 year time period is going to fly with the state. So the ZBA hearings being continued till we can check more into this issue as to what will count and what will the state accept to be on a subsidized housing inventory. So what's going to come up to the planning board is for this board to decide how you want to treat this. Do you want to still keep it on the warrant? Do you want to just eliminate this? Do you want to make changes to this? I do understand that, if someone is going through all of these very onerous requirements, that they would like to gain something. That if they're giving this to the town, they'd like the town to work with them, and maybe you're okay with having it be a rental. The problem is we will then have the potential of 3 rental units. So as long as everyone's aware that that is what would be potentially created. I'll leave it there and open it up to the board for discussion.
What would be the timeline for the ZBA for us to have to make a decision on how we move forward with this?
So the ZBA is going to have it at their next hearing, which I believe is at the end of the month. I'll have to check and see when it is, but I think they just continued it to the end of the month, because they're concerned too that now that that I raised it, that in order to count on the state subsidized list, which it seems like that's one of the criteria is here, a special permit may not be enough. It might require a deed restriction.
But there's no planning board action required before the next ZBA hearing continuation,
Nope.
right?
No.
The planning board action here would be for a future annual town meeting to deal with the bylaw itself and figure out if this is the bylaw, this is what's in the
Correct.
books.
Right.
Do
So
we want
we
this
can't
to
change
be-
this. Right.
Yeah.
Not now.
I haven't read through this, but would local regulations still apply?
This is a local regulation.
Yes.
I mean,
it's
as far
not.
as Board of Health and
Yes.
and all of that.
Yes. Right. It does. It is like Board of Health. Oh, Marion has her hand raised. I don't. If someone wants to call on her, Frank or Steph.
Before we do that, and I want to hear Marion's point of view. Is there any other questions or comments from the board first? Because if there are, Marion can address maybe a couple of those, because she has some historical background.
She has a history. Yeah.
All right, Marion, if you would please.
Sure. Yeah, I wish I did have the history clear in my mind, but my recollection of the Sorry, I'm trying to turn on my video so you can.
There you go. Oh, you had it.
Yeah, it's turning itself off. Sorry. All right. Oh, well, just as well.
There
Oh,
you
there
go.
you go. Yeah, I, I admit I have not read this bylaw since we put it into place and the ZBA started issuing these special permits, or the planning board issued the special permit. The ZBA had to approve each one. But honestly, I've got to go back and read it because I don't, my recollection is that the special permit ADU could be affordable or not. But in any case, it is possible to rent it to anyone because that was the hang up in the previous version of the bylaw. So I have to go back and read this, but I can't help you right now. I'm sorry. I'm going to go read it right now, but my recollection is that that all of these special permit ADUs were not required to be affordable.
Well, in this one, it does say, if you look at B1, that units is to be low to moderate income as defined, and the initial period of restriction is, so there are significant restrictions to this, and one of them is a financial restriction or income restriction.
Right, and Marion is correct that our special permit section lets you choose whatever you want. It does not have to be a low affordable, but the fact that this is spelled out as its own separate category, the arguments presented to me that the ZBA chair and our building inspector feel is that this created a separate special permit category, different from the other special permits. So then they felt there were three.
That I do recall. As I recall, the intent of this bylaw was to allow one special permit ADU. It could be either a whatever,
Right,
a high income ADU or a lower moderate income one.
right. And that's what it says that, but the problem is we still allow a by right state one in addition to this.
Oh, yes, but that makes
Yep.
2 total, not 3.
Right. No, but if you have your primary dwelling, the state one says you don't have to have owner occupancy on that. So that's the problem, is that's where you get 3 rental units, the primary dwelling, this low affordable moderate one, and a state by right one.
Oh, okay.
Because this bylaw is silent on whether there's owner occupancy or not.
Right. So it's not a matter of 3 ADUs. It's a matter
No,
of
no, no.
1 major residence and possibly 2 ADUs.
Right. So 3 dwelling units, I was trying to say. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think I misunderstood that, Heidi, and I haven't had a chance to read this whole bylaw as well. Are you saying that you could not have this moderate low income and a special permit ADU?
Correct, because right up in the first paragraphs, it does say containing or building containing 1 additional housekeeping unit. So you either get this special permit 1200 one, or you get this low affordable income one.
But
That's allowed. You can't do the separate 1200 and this 1200 one, but you can do the by right state one because that trumps our special permit ones.
It seems redundant.
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't need to make a decision now. I'm just trying to kind of get start forming what's going to be on the next warrant. And this is one thing I think we have to clean up, either add more clarifying language or decide if you still need it.
So I think what you're saying is that with this bylaw, so the intent, what we thought we were writing with the special permit, when we cleaned up the special permit ADU and designated the by right ADU, or the whatever they called it, priority, whatever.
Yeah.
That we were only allowing 1 unit to be occupied by not the owner.
Correct.
But
Well,
now
no,
if they
no,
take
right.
this as their special permit instead of the regular special permit ADU, then the owner doesn't have to live anywhere on the premises.
Correct.
It's still the
Correct.
same number of units. It's just about owner occupancy.
Right.
Okay.
Do you know how many of these there are in town?
I don't know if there are any lower moderate income ones. I think I actually, I know they're not on our SHI. So
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
none for that. We have, according to our building inspector, around 20 ADUs, special
Yeah.
permit ones, because we don't have any of the by right ones yet.
I see.
But I think you were saying that someone is potentially investigating uh, two of these, you said, right?
Right. That application went to ZBA for 2 of these on 2 different properties.
Oh, 2 different property. Oh, 2 on each property?
Well, they would have their main house and then 2 ADUs, this ADU and the other state by right one, so that they do not have owner occupancy in any of those 3 dwellings that are on the property. And there's 2 properties next to each other, and there will be 3 on one and 3 on the other.
3 dwelling units,
Correct,
but 4 ADUs total.
correct.
3 dwelling units per property, a total of 6 dwelling units on the 2 properties. But that's the same thing that you decided was okay before, right?
No,
It's the
No, we
same
s-
number of that's the distinction I was trying to make, Marion. It's the same
Yeah.
number of units, but if it was a regular special permit and not a low income, it would require owner occupancy in one of the units.
Oh,
the main house or the special permit one.
But if they take this special permit, lower moderate income, there's no tie to owner occupancy, so that someone could own the primary dwelling, this special permit ADU and the by right ADU, and no, that owner does not have to live on the property to rent the 3 units.
right. So I thought my I guess misconception or mismemory was that this lower moderate income special permit ADU was a subset. That is, when you have a special permit ADU from the town, you can have 1 per property, and the owner has to live in the house, and the ADU can either be market rate or low income. You choose. But
Right, that was my interpretation, but apparently ZBA said it's silent, this particular section, because this was spelled out as an individual section, they feel that it's silent on here and doesn't have any mention at all.
Okay, it doesn't say, it's just silent. So yeah, I think it has to be made a lot clearer that this is a subtype of special
And-
permit ADU.
And by extension, Marion, that this is subject to the requirements of the regular special permit ADU as well.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think
Right.
that was the intent.
Right, and then it was argued to me, why would anyone choose to do all of these restrictions just to get an ADU? And you know, I said, well, that's their choice. You know, it's they don't have to. They could still do a regular special permit one and choose to rent it lower themselves without going through all these hoops. You know, but if you choose to get this, you have to follow each one of these items.
And you would only really do that once you've already did the other one.
Well, but you can't do 2 special permit ones. That does limit us to 1. You can't do 2 1200 ones on a property. They can do the state 900 one regardless of what other type they use. It's just a step of saying it's question of owner occupancy requirement.
There's
So
no
you-
contribution to SHI.
Right, but it also, it could, right now, the way it's written, it can be taken off. In 2 years, they can choose not to renew the permit. Yet now the dwelling's gonna have been built.
It would have to be a 40B to do that, I guess, right?
Well, no, if it's a special permit ADU, Heidi, and they decide to take it off, you mean off the SHI or off the ADU?
Off of the SHI, like if they decide not to resubmit for a special permit through the ZBA.
Well, then it's just a normal special permit ADU that's market rate.
Okay,
And-
and then have to have owner occupancy on one or the other.
Yeah,
Okay,
And I mean, why don't you just keep owner occupancy for all the special permit ADUs? Owner occupancy in the main dwelling.
Then why would you need this one?
You wouldn't. People can
Right.
choose to make
So we
a,
could just delete it.
yeah. People could choose to make an apartment affordable if they want to go through all that stuff, but they
Right.
don't have to.
Right,
And
so
they
that's
can,
what, yeah,
They could just choose to do it as affordable, period.
no, she could do it as an ADU, period.
yeah.
But the
It's-
person could decide how much they want to charge for rent, whether it is affordable or not affordable. That's a choice that they
That's right.
can make, right?
Yeah.
We have to continue, go to the hearing, sorry.
Oh, right.
So we can keep coming back to this, but I just wanted to get everyone's radar.
All right, shall I move to open the hearing?
To open the continuation of the hearing.
Right, right. So I move to call for a vote to open the continuation of the hearing that started on August the 19th. That has been posted and published for the updates of the A&R approval not required Form A application and amend Planning Board Regulations 380 Part 2 Article 2 procedure for submission of plans not requiring approval under subdivision control law. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Brett Piercy,
Aye.
Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Rob Wolf, welcome.
Aye.
And I, Frank Hook, am an aye as well. Did I get everybody?
Yes,
All right, so this is Jim and Heidi.
okay, so last we had gone over what our A&R form was, and we had a couple questions. And Steph, do you want to bring up
Yeah.
that?
I was just downloading it because I'd gotten it.
Yeah.
I hadn't got it in my files yet. Here we go. Form A.
So there's a question I was going to be going to town council. We were discussing how to be on it as far as information we're requiring on buildings and structures. I think it's on the next page. Yeah, number 8.
It's section 2.2, number 8.
Yep. So right now we talk about existing buildings on our one, and let me go and say the exact words of what we have currently. And questions came up on one of the A&Rs we did recently about stone walls not being on there and whether all of the sheds and everything should be on there. And I did speak with town council and discussed about what the purpose of an A&R is, to look at street frontage, the lot, if we have the correct lot size, and access. And those are the biggest things that we can choose. We either endorse it or not endorse it. Some of this information is helpful for us to look at, but it's nothing we can require, and we can't turn down an A&R that doesn't have the septics on there or the swimming pools on there. So it's a question of then, do we want to even keep that on there? Why some towns have it and some don't, I don't know. But it's
You're
nothing
talking
that
about
we
line
can.
item, we're talking about line item 8.
8, yep,
All the words on line item 8.
yep. So I don't know what the planning board feels like they want to require. I mean, it's helpful to get information that maybe it
It's
would
in
be
their best
informative.
interest to do that.
It's in the party's interest to have it if there's a record that someone can bring it up and see it, but it's not in the planning board's purview to make a decision on them. So kind of a tough call.
Modified the language a little bit to say something about those structures which may be, which setback area may be influenced by the A&R or something, or by the by the modified property lines or something like that.
Even that we have to kind of keep.
No, I
Yeah.
understand, but
Yeah.
I guess my point being that I don't see the need to have every structure on there, but it is helpful for me as a point of reference to see the structures that may be impacted by the A&R lot line moves.
Right, and we may want to say the location of the buildings on there.
But- But a
Well, I think
septic,
we said anything with a setback, right? Was how we had.
That's what we were thinking, but again, it's it's something that we don't really need to require. So if someone pushes back and say, you don't need that for your decision, what do we do?
We understand the underground structure part. I mean, if there's an underground structure that can't be surveyed that's in the vicinity of the proposed
Right,
setback, then there's a hardship there.
but that's the one that
old-
we're most interested in.
Yes, but if we said, if we know the vicinity of it,
so,
How could,
yeah,
what about if we do the following? What if we do something along on the lines of a recommended basis? You know, it's strongly suggested to provide location of all existing structures, well, and all the rest of it. That way, it's not necessarily required. One could argue that it could sway a decision, but it does then allow the property owner to find those places and make sure that, their septic system isn't on somebody else's land, and the time they have to change it, they have to put it in a different location because it's no longer all on their property.
well, we could put a parentheses in recommend locations of instead of, so our current one says location of all existing buildings on proposed lots and abutting lots. That's what's been on there. That's what people have been used to. And then one thing I did is when we change it to structures, that actually does cause an issue because our definitions right now, building is a combination of any materials, whether portable or fixed, having a roof supported by walls or columns and designed for the shelter, housing, or enclosure of persons, animals, or property of any kind. The word building shall be construed where the context so permits as being followed by the words or any part thereof. Structure, if we change it just to structure, our definition that we have is a combination of materials other than a building, constructed or placed in a fixed location of a ground, et cetera, et cetera. So the concern I have is if we change it to structures, we're saying other than a building. And I don't think we want to do that.
well, if you had a generator, for instance, it's not a building, but it's a accessory structure probably, right?
It says that, yeah, shall not include walls or fences, utility poles or guides. I mean, it could be in there, but again, a generator is not something that we just have to, our town council said she does not recommend doing things that the planning board can deny or waive. So I kind of feel like we have to do some type of a combination of it. Now, what she did suggest, though, that we add, which is not in here, is Framingham has a whole section, and it just happened this afternoon. I have not had time to even send it out. Framingham has some sections of what's required for access. And that was actually something we may want to look at and consider. So they said that, so what's that they had on here? They were talking about whether you needed a topographical map, which would show elevations. They also discussed, here it is. All man-made structures and significant natural features such as existing buildings, structures, sidewalks, stone walls, et cetera, they go on. And they talk about it that would impede access to the parcel of land because they said that's what the planning board can make decisions, things that impede the access to land. Location of all wetlands, and they give some more explanation, and a topographical plan at 2-foot contours based on identified benchmark or datum to show again that it's not up on a huge cliff that you could not access the property. So that is something that would make be
Yeah,
useful for the planning board to have, to know that it's something that's in your purview to approve or deny, endorse or not endorse.
that would be good information.
So, yeah, so I talked briefly to Steph and Frank today, and I said I would love to suggest that we continue this so I could get this information out to everyone. We have time to digest it, think a little bit more about what we want with those structures. The rest of the exchanges seem fine with town council and what we're trying to say. It's just, she's trying to really focus us on what the planning board is supposed to be doing.
So are you recommending to delete line item 2.2.8?
No, not deleted. I think we still need to use the word buildings in there. We want to see that buildings that are on proposed lots and abutting lots. We want buildings. We might want to do something like Jim said, put in, and maybe in parentheses, recommend to show setbacks and other ones. So if people choose to put it in, that is great, but it's not something we can require, because when we have contents of plans, it said each plan shall. So if we're saying each plan shall, we're telling them that we're not going to accept the plan as a complete application unless it does this.
Marion, did you still have a comment that you wanted to make?
No, I think you're covering it just fine.
Okay. Rob, any comments on this?
No, I was looking through the state, where the state defines what subdivisions are, and I looked through a couple of other town ones, and I am still a little confused about a couple of things. But it's more related to what's on the application form, and not the regs, I think. But our application form has an area for talking about, they want to see like the width and area, I think, of the lot. In section 1, minimum frontage area and width.
This is
And
the form, Rob, so I'm just looking for it.
yeah, it's down a little bit. Yeah, where it says either because. So
Well, if we're maybe we take this off of the group discussion, since it sounds like there's some value to reconsidering what's here. Heidi was going to look at the Framingham example and propose maybe this says buildings, and then maybe we have a parenthetical that says planning board also strongly encourages blah, blah, blah. And we could take the language from the old version, from the version we talked about 2 weeks ago. And then Rob, maybe that would give you some time to do a little more thought on what you think, because we talked about this extensively at the last meeting too. So I think just having words on the page to react to would be more productive, rather than digging through definitions collectively. What do people think about that? If Heidi and I can offline on the Framingham stuff, and Rob, if you want to come up with some specific language on this piece that we can react to, would that work for folks? And then we can continue the hearing.
okay, that's fine.
Marion?
Yeah, I had just, if you're going to work on this, I had one other thought that you might consider. Twice, I would say, in the last year, we've grappled with ANRs that were done recently or a long time ago, either way, where on the same ANR plan, additional information was put. Like, for example, on the Brush Hill ANR plan that now, is being, part of it's being developed. The ANR was done years ago. And in the ANR really should just show a new lot with all the caveats that you've been talking about. But this ANR plan has also a restriction placed on it, an 80-foot corridor in the center of the land that where there should be no houses, and that's not appropriate for an ANR decision. And so I just wonder if there's some language to kind of discourage people slipping in other restrictions or caveats or things other than the A&R issue itself onto a plan. Maybe this is an outdated worry, but you know, we're coming up with these old plans that have such things on them.
That's a
Same
good
thing with the
example,
EPS.
Marion.
Pardon me?
That's a good example, Marion, yeah.
And I
And
don't
I,
know
yeah,
if you can
I think
say
that is good. Yeah.
maybe you can just put a caveat on our town instructions that, you know, the A&R plan and no additional information or plan beyond the A&R division should be included in an A&R plan. I don't know. It might just save you some trouble in the future.
Well, or we don't, when they turn it in, we just say we're not going to accept anything with a note on it. You know, just say this is not part of the A&R process.
All right, or anything on it that's not part of the A&R
Right,
process.
Be-
Yeah, it could be done internally in the planning board, but
Yeah.
as long as everybody remembers.
Yeah, it's very tough. And I think that's why town council kept trying to refocus me to say, remember, you are just endorsing or not endorsing, and you are really only with an A&R looking at 3 things. And we do have the one little caveat line that we say that this does not conform to, you know, we don't make any recommendations that this conforms to zoning.
Could we just add to that, like, or other decisions outside of the A&R, outside of the authority and the A&R, I don't know, making a lawyer speak now, but, you know, can we add something here that is not a determination as to conformance with zoning or any other thing that's outside of A&R requirements?
I think we should look and see whatever, like, get some other ideas on that and what we can legally put. I mean, and again, what does it really mean? And I think, you know, town council was saying, you know, what we have is very simple. It kind of is a catch-all. So
Yeah.
again, Framingham, which has a 4-page application, like very detailed. A note shall appear in the plan stating that the endorsement of the planning board should not be construed to be a determination of conformance within the zone, Framingham zoning, blah, 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 but not limited to a regularly shaped lot, upland area, buildable lot, lot width, open space, lot coverage, minimum lot size, land disturbance, stormwater management, and or floor area ratio. It's like they go this whole thing on there. That's their statement that they require.
That
But
wouldn't
you could-
apply in Sherborn, but
I mean, I agree that it's really cumbersome if you start naming everything that should not be on the plan.
Yeah,
FAR would apply to a city.
Yes, though it is a little bit funny to just broadly state that we're not determining that it's in conformance with zoning requirements, because if you look at the state, the MGL, where it talks about that, we're specifically authorized and required to say that the frontage is in conformance with our zoning requirements. We just can't consider any other aspects of zoning requirements.
right.
And lot size.
And access. There's only 3 things we're supposed to be looking at.
Well, it's not clear to me that we can even do lot size, because I remember there was a thing a few years back with Gino where they said size is not one of the considerations.
Well, you say not a buildable lot on it. I mean, you've
Right.
got to have it's size in the sense of you have to meet the zoning. Are they 1 acre, 2 acre, 3 acre lots? Otherwise, it's not a buildable lot in that zone. But
Right.
Well, that's in the state A&R law, so that is, it has to be of a size compatible with the underlying zoning area.
and it's actually the A&R handbook. It's not even the state. The state is so vague that they say nothing in the actual MGL, but the A&R handbook with all the case laws is that's what's come out of it.
But we don't, maybe I misunderstood this, but I don't think we don't have to say that every parcel has the frontage, right? Because the back parcel on the Farm Road one didn't have the frontage and was labeled as not a buildable lot, right?
Right, but that's the alternative. In order to say that we're gonna create these lots, you either label it not a buildable lot or it is a
Okay.
lot.
So the same thing could be said for size.
Yeah,
Okay.
But if it's an A and R, it has to have the frontage and it has to have the area of the underlying zoning district. That's,
or be labeled not a buildable lot within the, like if they're dividing their parcel up, they can have a parcel that is divided but does not have frontage, and it just has to be labeled not a buildable lot.
is that in the state law? I never saw that in the state law.
It's
don't
not
think-
in MGL, but a
No.
lot of towns like account for it. I saw that, I forget which town it was, but they accounted for it by distinguishing between lots and parcels. They say you can break it into parcels, which are not lots, and therefore do not have a building on them and could not have a building put on them.
That's a
And
good way,
That's
yeah.
okay.
But then it's no longer an A and R. Then it
Well,
becomes,
no, we do that on A&Rs all the time. Like if somebody's gonna
Yeah.
swap a little sliver of their lot with somebody else's, we do those all the time. That's not specific. I don't see anything in the actual, as Heidi says, very vague MGL. That only talks about splitting it into pieces with frontage on each piece. But it seems like everybody does also allow you to split off little non-buildable pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah, Marion, we recently did endorse an A&R that had a back lot that was large in acreage and lacked street frontage.
but that's not
And
A and R. That is a 4.4 lot. It's a different, but
no,
there was
No.
no approval of building on the lot. It was just moving the lot lines.
and historically, Marion, I've pulled off quite a few looking at them, and this is how they've been done.
A and R. Okay.
Yeah. And it just says, like looking at Framingham and all the towns seem to have something where it is labeled, and it says where applicable, the following shall appear in the plan stating, and you either check off the parcel is to be joined, and not considered a separate lot for the purpose of the parcel not be construed as a buildable lot or not a buildable lot without further zoning relief. So it's pretty clear towns do put that in the A&R, and it's just
Okay.
like Rob said, I think it's the parcel, and historically Sherborn has done that for a few.
Let's just see if Brett has any questions or comments. And then Jane after Brett. Oh, Brett's muted and she shook her
right.
head no, so
No,
we'll take that as a no, Brett.
Yeah, no, this is fine.
Jane, any questions, comments? Nope, just okay. All right. Any more comments or discussion on this topic? So
I'd
we're-
like to continue it to
What,
the next meeting.
That's what I was just
Yeah.
gonna do.
Do we want
I
to?
would, can we clarify who's doing what though? Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about, and I just want to make sure that everything has an owner. So it's like, Rob, you were talking about the either because language that we went into great detail on last meeting and doing some language there. I am happy to take the lead on item 8 and work with Heidi to incorporate Framingham language. What about this other piece about no additional restrictions and requirements to be slipped into the A&R approval on the fly? Can someone, I guess I'm sort of not fully clear what direction that would take. Is someone willing to sort of spearhead that?
You broke up, so I missed some of what it is that you were saying. Which part are we talking about?
Marion's comment about not slipping in additional restrictions or requirements through an A&R process.
Like
on
the
the
Brush Hill,
plan.
like the Brush Hill one.
Oh yeah, I kind of initiated this document, so I'd be happy to continue that.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim, that's you. Thanks for admitting to being the troublemaker here.
I mean, it does seem like the closer we keep everything to like strictly what's required for the A&R, the less likely people are going to be able to slip stuff in and have us maybe not notice, or us try to allow them to slip stuff in, I think.
Well, I agree with that generally, but I also feel like having structures and buildings showing on the plan really helps helps to understand the property. And I worry about putting in an A&R that cuts into setbacks that we just don't even know, right? I mean, I feel like that should be part of the process.
Should be, but
But it
we,
can't affect our decision though, right?
yeah.
The
So then
applicant,
better
the
not
applic-
to know.
the applicant is encouraged to show these items on the site plan.
Yeah, but I hear what Brett is saying, that it can't change our decision anyway.
No, that's
even
why
if they
town
showed.
council, yeah, they really pushed back on me and they said, even if someone did it, went right across a building or a septic, we are only to look at those items for an A&R. And they said, unfortunately, it's, you know, people have to do their own due diligence, and whoever's, if they're selling the property, if someone's buying it, you know, they really should look into where these things are. But that's not our job. As much as it goes against the grain, like to me, I just cannot see why we would
Yeah.
knowingly put a plan that would go across a building or a septic.
It's in their best interest to do that. Maybe
Right,
that
right,
should be
but
stated as part of that.
yeah, but
Okay.
and I'll look at the Framingham one and send that around to people, what those other access requirements are, because I think that is something we can vote on and we can use as criteria.
Well, Heidi, why don't you and I just try and get some succinct language instead of sending like bigger documents around? Why don't you and I just work on language that people can react to, and
That sounds
unless
good.
everybody wants to see the whole Framingham, but
Well, they can, yeah, they can look it up online if they want it, but it's there. But yes, I'd be very happy just to work with language.
I mean, I think there's I haven't looked at the Framingham, but I think, like I said, there'll be some things that are not applicable to Sherborn. FAR,
Right.
one of those, and I don't know what else is on there, but
All right, so I think there was a motion to continue this, but it hasn't been seconded.
a second.
So it's been moved and seconded
a motion to continue the hearing to which date and time, Frank?
to our next meeting, which is
September 16th.
16th
Yep.
at 7:15 p.m.
Okay.
For the continuation of this meeting on the topic of A&R. Approval not required. And I have a second. So all those in favor, Steph,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Jim,
I
and I, Franco, come aye as well. Okay. Thank you. So we'll continue this discussion. Next item, do you want to do the miscellaneous items for the annual town meeting?
Yes. I think Steph has nicely gone through and already. So what I compiled was I compiled all the comments I had gotten and received at the planning board, the summit town meeting, because I want to acknowledge that we heard them. But there's a lot that we've already either done or have that they will not be on a list going forward. So Steph has, I think, compiled them all on a list and has notes on them.
Yeah, I can pull those up.
So I was going to see if we could just run down each one and then decide if any of these are going to go forward at the next town meeting.
Okay, so what I did was I looked up each of the comments like this. I think some of the comments were made on old drafts before we put the finishing touches on the language.
Yep.
So where I think we've addressed it, I just said in a comment, we addressed it in the final approved. And this language gets shorter and shorter because I had to write it so many times. So I think we did like, so for example, the definition removes the word lowest, but in the final bylaw, we kept the word lowest for this reason. I think probably as a result of this comment, we sort of tweaked the language and put it back in, right? So the vast majority of these, all of these that you can see, here is one where this one, so multi-dwelling, this piece of it we already addressed. We are leaving some like references to housekeeping unit and apartment as legacy designations. We're saying, you know, formerly known as or something, formerly apartments and housekeeping units. So that if we see it on a plan, we have some context to know what it is. But here it says the term ADU is not defined or used. Oh, I got this right. So ADU should be defined. And I guess in highlighting this, I was thinking we were waiting on state guidance for like principal dwelling versus accessory dwelling, and maybe like round 2 covering, I'm going to put that in here more specifically. Oh, of course, it's not letting me do anything.
Can I just ask a question is just to take a step back for a minute? Aside from these specific suggestions, can I ask what the intent was on the new section 240-3.2 as it relates to the original 240-3.2? Because I don't believe that what was passed at town meeting clearly states, and this sort of, I think, addresses what, to some extent, what we were talking about in the last topic with the low and moderate income apartments. Are we trying to replace what was there before with 240-3.2? Are we trying
talking about the ADU specifically? Just sorry to be
right, because
okay, let me open it.
What I'm looking at is and I hope this is the right document. I took off the website the warrant article that for the ATM, and what I have is first there was a section 240-1.5 definitions. There were a few definitional things. Then it just says 240-3.2 schedule of use regulations, and it goes into some ADU related, you know, protected and permitted. But I'm not sure it's clear what this 240-3.2 is supposed to do in relation to the original. I mean, it isn't clear.
So, oh, I'm not in the ADU one. Hold on. I have to go to the other one. Floodplain ADU 1.5, 3.2. So, and we had, I don't know how involved you were in the process, Jane, when we did this, but we also had a handout that we gave as a handout in annual town meeting, but also used this for the advisory hearing and a lot of one-on-one conversations that Heidi and Addie Mae had with advisory members. And so we put like side by side, like we put an overview of like what the bylaw was. So this, which I think I'm sharing, was sort of the logic of what we were trying to do with section 3.2. So we were proposing a compliance pathway that had 2 separate categories of ADUs. This is a separate discussion from the low and moderate income that we were discussing earlier because that wasn't on our radar screen.
But that's sort of my question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the low and moderate income wasn't on our radar screen. So we were looking at what was called an apartment in the bylaw and renaming it as special permit ADU, which is what it was. and then adding a protected use ADU. So not changing the special permit ADU, the requirements of the larger special permit ADU.
So
So
was the
then-
intent, I'm sorry.
Well, if I can just,
Sure, go
I
ahead.
don't think you're sharing that document.
oh, am I not?
You
Okay,
still
let me
have the
try.
same, you still have the same one up
Okay.
that was.
Let me try that again. Sorry. I thought I was, oh, I'm in application windows. Hold on. This is. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna have to do this. Okay. So this was in the handout, right? So the showing the two categories of ADUs for compliance. One was keep our special permit ADU, which is what we decided to rename it as part of the bylaw.
Steph,
Formerly known
I'm
as,
sorry to interrupt you, Steph, but I'm not asking even about ADUs. I'm asking a more fundamental question than that. What I'm saying is that we had a section 240-3.2 to begin with.
yes.
And we were
Right
looking
here.
at some of the provisions of that earlier in the meeting. And then at the last ATM, I believe what we did was pass something that is just labeled section 240-3.2, schedule of use regulations, same exact title, intro, etc. And then it says some stuff about ADUs, but it doesn't say anything about how that is supposed to relate to the original 240-3.2. So for
Okay, so-
example,
yeah.
are we just trying to replace the definition of apartment with these new ADUs? In which case you would typically say, section 240-3.2 subsection 2 is, deleted and replaced with the following, if that's what we're
yeah.
trying to do.
But that's what we did. So what Steph has up, the actual town meeting, we weren't replacing all 3.2. What we did have was we had 240 section 3.2, and then we had each little subsection of things that we were replacing or changing. So like, because 3.2 is so many different parts. So like what she has up on, we're on number 1, we had down what we're deleting and what we're changing. On number 2, we're doing this, but then we jumped to number 4 or 8, so we were only changing parts of 3.2. We weren't changing the whole by section 3.2, just
So
parts of it.
anything that we were deleting in 3.2 is shown as a strike through, and anything that we were adding is shown as an italics. And I forgive me, but all of the warrant articles that I've looked at have this format. The zoning warrant articles that I've looked at,
Yeah, I know.
when they're not full replacements, have this format when we're just wordsmithing, because it allows you to see what the changes are rather than having to compare back and forth on two documents.
Yeah, all right. So could you, what do you have up right now? Do you have up?
This was a handout. And let me just get rid of these meeting controls, hide floating meeting controls. I don't know if this is gonna, did your screen just change?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the actual signed warrant itself, which contained all of this micro text. It's just not highlighted. So the handout, we highlighted it to make it show up better, but the
Yeah,
warrant itself has the same strike through and italics for deleted and added to changes in the bylaw.
Okay, so are you saying then that the intent was to change subsection 1, subsection 2, subsection 8 and 9, and to add a 2A and do nothing else?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of more in section 3.2, but yes.
Okay.
We
These
were
are
leaving
only the
all the
sections that
rest.
change.
Yeah, all the rest
Yeah.
of 3.2 stayed.
Okay. And things like single family home, we don't have a definition of that. Is that something we could pull out? Could we pull out the definitions for single family home, for protected use, for special permit use? Because we use these terms ADUs, we use these terms, but we don't define them.
Well, single family home is a use, right? And this is the schedule, this section is the schedule of uses. And the single family home, which is allowed in all districts, is defined right in this paragraph. It is a single family detached dwelling together with protected use and special permit ADUs, which are formerly apartment or housekeeping units, So let's cut through all the parentheticals. A single family home is a single family detached dwelling, skip 2 lines, accessory buildings, including a garage for not more than 3 autos. So it sort of defines it here.
Right,
But
but
this
why,
is part
so
of
what
the-
I'm saying is just for clarity, why aren't we taking the definitions and putting them in the definition section? And then when we're talking about uses, why, then we talk about the uses?
Right. So that's an excellent question. And this was the structure of the bylaw as we started with before we started this warrant article. And what we had decided was that we were going to work within the constraints of what was already written and make the least change possible until we had the state guidance issued to give us more clarity to make a more overarching change, because we do not even define accessory dwelling unit anywhere.
Right,
And
Right.
so that's sort of what the comment was that I was referring to, that like, yes, we need overarching definitions. This is the only place that single family home and ADUs are defined, but we didn't want to make sweeping changes, because if the state came out with a definition of ADU, then we would be creating one last year and then amending it to match the state's. So we took the
right.
path of least change for the ADU, what Heidi has been referring to as our round 1, knowing that there was guidance coming and that we would be wanting to make changes according to the guidance.
So is it in scope at this point to try to clean some of this up and make it, to try to clarify some of this, or is that not what we're trying to accomplish? at this
Well, I guess the question that I have for the group on this is, how urgent are these cleanups? Is this something that could fall to the consultant who's going to do a really careful cleanup of the zoning bylaws as a housekeeping thing? Or is this just a general question that I have as well? Or is this something that we should have another ADU bylaw that specifically speaks to all things ADU, which is going to be at many different sections throughout the overall bylaws, the zoning bylaws, that cleans this kind of stuff up? Like, is
that's a really good question, because going back to the conversation we were having before about the low and moderate income, I mean, for example, if we were to take that out and just talk about ADUs, if you're applying for a special permit ADU, is there any mechanism in that approval process where you would be required to indicate whether or not you intended to have it be low income?
Not that I know of.
So if someone had an intent to create, as apparently we now have an applicant who does have an intent, if someone had an intent to create some low-income housing, they wouldn't necessarily have a mechanism. If we were to take out that other section, they wouldn't necessarily have a mechanism to do that, would they? Because they're just applying for a special purpose ADU. We don't know what they're going to charge for it, whether they're going to make it low income or not, or whether they're going to treat it as low income or not. So if we take out the low income, then we've sort of changed the opportunity for someone to come up with some low income housing through that mechanism. So I think, what we decide to do here, whether we're just adding in an ADU or whether we're trying to weave this into what was there before, I think there are some sort of fundamental questions that need to be asked about, well, what are we trying to accomplish? And do we want to just replace what was there before, or do we want to be more nuanced about it?
Well, for as far as the affordable ADU goes, I think the core question that we're waiting to hear back from council on, right, is if an ADU is designated as a low income ADU, could it count in the subsidized housing inventory, this in our affordable units officially with the state record, right? Because there's no deed restriction. So is there a legal document that binds it to be affordable, in which case it could be counted in our inventory of affordable units, right?
Even if it were just a regular special permit ADU that they were applying?
No, if even in item 27, which we talked about earlier. So this was also in the schedule of uses. It was number 27, and we're talking about number 2 and number 2A. So this was like way down on the list, right? There was this lower
Right.
moderate income apartment. And there, I think Heidi has raised the question of how could this count as a low income apartment by the state's definition if there's not a deed restriction? Right? So if
Or a
so,
long-term,
Well,
yeah.
or a
Or a
30-year
contract
binding.
or a condition in
Yeah.
the permit. I mean, it says
Right.
within the statute what other ways you could do it, but
So
I'm-
it's questionable whether this even creates the pathway for a low income ADU to be counted as an official affordable unit. So I think if that is true and there's not a way to bind the owner through this, then if this goes away and somebody creates a special permit ADU through the regular channel, sorry, where's the signed warrant, through a special permit accessory dwelling unit, they can charge less money for it and have it be an affordable unit, and it still doesn't count towards the state's inventory, and it's still like they can charge someone who's working on their property to live in it at a lower cost, but without the deed restriction or another binding contract, there's no advantage to having number 27 or to have a designation of affordable if it's not going to be in the state's definition, if it's not going to meet in the be in the state's inventory.
I understand yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just asking a more fundamental question of whether we're just trying to talk about ADUs now, or whether we're still trying to preserve the original statute, because how we present this now, I think makes the decision we make there makes a difference as to what changes we might want to make now. I think we would say,
Definitely.
we're adding this section or we're deleting the previous section, or, we'd harmonize the two if we were trying to do that. If we're just trying to
Definitely.
add a new discussion about ADUs, then that would be different. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree that how we treat 27 is tied into updating the ADU, round 2 of the ADU updates. What I
And it's
don't
not just
know,
27. I mean, 27 was an example because we were talking about it, but I mean, you could, the same thing holds true for everything that's in the pre-existing, 340.3.2.
I mean, that's always the conundrum with zoning bylaw changes, right? Is how much do you redo the entire structure of everything that's been built year after year after year and band-aided, right? How much do you go through that with a fine-tooth comb versus, make something that's that's to our best guess legally defensible as a zoning bylaw. And that's why I brought in the overhaul from the consultant, is that I thought that part of that was to sort of really take a step back and look at it. And that's why why I was asking the question about this kind of change, moving things into definitions to better define them and align with the state. Is that in the consultant scope of work as cleanup versus the ADU scope of round 2 of the ADU bylaw? I mean, it does have to happen, but to what degree are Jane and I doing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
as a
No, I
first
mean, I'm
pass
asking the same question.
versus-
That's really the question I'm asking, Steph. Are we trying to really make this clean, or are we just trying to, put Band-Aids until the bigger project? I get that, fundamentally, I guess that's what I'm asking.
So I think what Heidi started with, what Heidi provided to us in Word, was a list of things, like random comments that were made. Some of them are more big picture than others. Some of them are specific word changes. And it's just a collection of what we've heard so we don't lose anything. I think that, right, my first pass at this was to respond to the collection of what we've heard and say, we already did this, we already did this, we already did that. Right. And then we do need to think collectively about the strategy for incorporating other things, whether they're big or small. But I don't know that, I mean, I certainly right now don't have an answer, but I don't think it's an easy pathway. So
Okay.
it's
Okay,
just
thank
a
you. That's
legacy
helpful.
issue.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Um, So I'm not sure. Heidi, did you still want me to go through these items or?
Yes, because I think there's a lot we can take off this list that we've already done. So this
Okay.
list, my point in publicizing it was to let people know we heard them. We heard their comments, and either they were addressed along the way here at the end, or we are working on them, or we're putting them off till the consultant comes, but just so people know that we did listen to their comments.
Okay, can you guys still see my screen?
We see the one without the highlights, without the yellow highlights.
You're on the warrant.
Okay, let me unshare and read. I don't know what happened to for some reason it's not letting me share a screen right now. It's only letting me share an application, which is maybe I
that's
just
odd.
need to change a setting. Let's see, housekeeping. Oh, I see. Interesting. Oh no, don't want that. Okay, let's share this. Okay.
That's
So
back.
I flagged this as a definition of accessory dwelling unit that we were waiting on state guidance for. Again, there's an implementation issue question here about whether the planning board is implementing or drafting, or whether this consultant is drafting things like state definitions. There was a question about patio at grade. And if this is if there was a patio that was higher than the house, is that at grade? I read the language and I think we could just delete at grade, but that would obviously be, so I highlighted yellow things that are still points for discussion for the planning board. So here I'm making a proposal to make a word change that I could do in the bylaws, and then we can look at the language in context. These are all, oh, so this one said Residence District M doesn't exist, and so it should be deleted, but we left it in, like, I think we said like something like converted to EA or something like that. And I'm still a fan of leaving it in, because if an old map shows Residence District, at least there's some rationale within the bylaws. You could search Residence District M and understand what that is today. So I was inclined to not accept this or to not implement this comment.
I agree with you, Steph. I just think historically there should be some, because this is a problem. If we take it out, it's gone.
Yeah, and the same with apartments, and
Yeah.
so some of those legacy terms, just leaving them in as legacy terms, but tying them to new definitions. So these were addressed in the final approved bylaw. I changed this to appears addressed so I could write it faster because I was writing it so many times. These all seem to have been addressed in the final bylaw. Including like the footnotes and stuff. I think there was an old version. I kind of recall an old version that didn't have some of the footnotes.
Yeah.
Let's see, what is this tied to? Oh, here this says apartments or housekeeping units should not be used. This is another thing where I sort of want the legacy designation to be in the bylaws. And I think we've changed the way it shows up from the way maybe the person read it when they made this comment. So, for what it's worth. This appears addressed. There was an errant thing that said attached schedule, min lot width continuously maintained. It was just like notes that were accidentally left in a version that went away. Okay, there's a question here. Renting a room. This is an allowed use. The language says the rental must be more than 30 days unless otherwise approved. What is the approval mechanism? What body would approve? What would the standards be? I believe that this came up because Fireside Tavern has an approval to rent its rooms, maybe through the ZBA. So this might just be like an answer to the question, a response to the person. I'm not sure, but I don't think there's anything to implement here.
I do agree that otherwise approved, we don't tell them if it's planning board or ZBA. And I think that we probably should have, because so many other parts of our bylaw say, oh, the special permit goes through the ZBA or the special permit goes through the planning board. So by not designating a pathway, even though we know it's fireside, what if there is something
Uh-huh.
else that comes in town?
Uh-huh.
Who's the permit granting authority?
Unless otherwise approved, like by the zoning board of appeals or something like that.
Right, I actually agree that we should have some clarification on what the mechanism is. And
Okay.
I don't know if we know that. Like, I'll have to find out about fireside, but
That is a highlight so that
Yeah.
we keep it on the list for now.
Yeah.
I noticed when I was looking at this comment that 14A, the table, I think,
yes,
says allowed and the text says permissive. So that is something we need to fix.
Yep.
I remember that coming up.
Yep.
This one we did fix.
yes,
We tied it to the open space district. Again, these just appear to all be addressed. Okay, here's one that came up. I remember this one, Heidi, where it said minimum parking 1.5 spaces per unit in our multifamily overlay. And there was a comment that we maybe shouldn't have a minimum of 1.5 parking spaces. These, you know, the point is that it's near transit. So this is for consideration by the board, if we want to think about this having, you know, a lesser parking requirement for multifamily overlay. This one I didn't dig into a lot, but I think there's still some legitimate comments and questions here. So I just haven't dug into it. I left it highlighted.
yeah, we don't define infill lots, and that actually has been mentioned a couple of times to me for people.
Yeah, but we did fix the section reference, I believe.
Yes.
There's a suggestion to change commercial trucks to construction trucks in the home business one. I just didn't even know if that was right, so I highlighted it. If this is a correct statement, it needs to be addressed, but I didn't dig in to look if it was correct or not.
Yeah, because I'm concerned if by making construction trucks, you're actually limiting it. A landscaping
Yes.
truck is not a construction
Yes.
truck, but both of them would
Agreed.
be commercial. So,
Or like a painter's truck or
right,
something like that.
I think
yeah.
that was intentionally left as commercial. But
So
we'll check.
Yeah, needs to be. And then the
Fleet-
square footage, sorry, Jim?
I was saying a fleet of limos would be something.
Not a construction vehicle for sure. The square footage of a accessory, what do we call it? Not a shed, but it's called a
Structure.
accessory structure or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what we changed shed to, but
Yeah.
Well, I think we call it structure, but I think accessory structure would be a better definition, because that could include other things, like I said, generators, or that aren't necessarily a structure with a roof.
I think they tied it to a foundation. Well, I can't remember. There was talk about the naming of that term in terms of not accidentally including solar arrays. Right.
Yeah,
And
so
even
yeah.
generators, because that's a different, like, I think it was intentionally not meant to include all structures, like ground mounts of generators and solar arrays. It was
Yeah.
a shed, and they were trying to expand shed to something that is sort of similar in function, like you might access it occasionally, but a solar panel, you know, has a different aesthetic to it, and a generator makes noise, and so they wanted to sort of keep it shed-like. We can table that. I can put that in here too. But there was a comment that the 250 square foot limitation was always in there, and there was a comment to change it to 256 to accommodate a 16 by 16 shed.
From a
Which,
construction standpoint, yeah. But
so again, just up for group discussion. Let me just put a note in here about review.
I think this is Chris Caney has to weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
shed
we made it small
versus-
accessory structure. We struck
Ah.
shed and made structure, and it said including sheds, arbors, pergolas, pavilions, etc.
Okay,
And we said they're not permanent in nature. We struck foundation because you weren't allowed to say that. We just said so it can just be, it's not permanent.
but there was a question about parking that I don't remember seeing in here.
Yes, that's one of the things in here because it says this. I didn't have it in here because Penn never emailed me the exact question,
Got it, okay,
and
it.
but
okay.
Stephen Bonder brought it up again to me that Penn had the question about parking and storage of automobiles. Because we have in it, the structure shall not be used for the parking and storage, and we say of automobiles. So it allows motorcycles, tractors, and other vehicles. And it's been argued that they would like to just strike that because why can you put a motorcycle or a tractor in there, but you can't put an automobile in it? So that's one to add.
Okay, I just put it in the comment here that's affiliated
Yep.
with this yellow highlight.
Yep.
Right now, this says 1.5 stories to allow for a pitched roof. And the proposal is 16-foot high. I guess there was maybe a loophole for a 20 or 30-foot high shed as a half story. I don't know, not really sure. I've just highlighted it. We didn't address it. Here's the lower moderate income apartments. Lot width. I also feel like lot shape has sort of sometimes come up in terms of like fork tines and more regular lot shapes and lot width and all of that definition around lots potentially up for discussion. And then
Steph,
special
do you want to, I think that's something we should explore a little bit more. Because this has come up several times and we just don't
Yeah.
have answers. And I don't know if someone wants to like research some other towns and get an idea of what other people are saying about lot shapes and lot widths. And
We tried that several years ago, and we really had a challenge with that. We tabled it
that-
and hit the can down the road, and now maybe it's the time again, or but it's
Sure, I
not
mean-
an easy discussion. It's a
No.
big change.
Yeah, and a lot of the lot shape stuff that we did, like the whole circle thing on the right, that thing, that was trying to get to lot shape through the frontage angle and the minimum lot width stuff, but there might be other like I'm sort of thinking back to my, planning courses on regular lot sizes and intentional zoning and stuff like that. So I'd be happy to sort of see if anything jumps out, take a look at other towns. And welcome others, obviously, to do the same. So if anyone has a particular interest in this.
Steph, how about if you come up with a list of towns we should look at, and then dole out the list of towns to some of us to work on.
Okay.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, it's tricky because sometimes you want something different for like a big parcel than a small parcel, right? So, I know there's a farm behind me that's a really big, like tens of acres, and they have irregular shape because they have options for paths to different streets because they take up so much of the infill area. So I don't, we can't constrain it too much, but it's just an interesting question. And then there was this special permits in business districts, which I know has been an ongoing flag. So that wasn't addressed fully. Now, this doesn't account for a lot of bylaws that we've been talking about, right? Like round 2 ADUs, which we just discussed just at the beginning of this discussion, as well as battery energy storage systems and, all this stuff we're sort of stormwater, groundwater stuff. We have a different priority list. This was just, being responsive to comments. So maybe some of this stuff goes onto the consultant list. I guess, Heidi, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit since the consultant thing was passed at the town meeting. Like, what latitude do we have? What is the scope of that? And could some of this stuff fall into it?
I'm hoping so. So I had applied for another grant that would be in addition to what the town meeting voted, and I'd find out in October if I get that. And that would make if we get it, it makes a big difference on what we can make our scope. So I'm hoping for another month to figure out, to give you feedback more on what we can, because if we don't get that grant, then it's what town meeting is, and we may have to limit the scope more and
Okay.
direct it. But so if we can hold off on that question, I think what I'd like to do is see if everyone is okay with what Steph has weeded out, and that Steph could then just put a document saying these are the things that we are going to look at still from comments that came over, like just pull the things here that were in yellow or whatever we figured needed to be worked on still.
And I can send this around so people can really look at it against the warrant if they want to and confirm some of this stuff I didn't look up. I was just like, oh, I'm pretty sure I remember talking about this and addressing it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be bad to have a second check for sure. Do we know if the final warrant is reflected in the online zoning
It is
bylaws?
not. It is not.
Okay.
So the other thing too is the Attorney General has approved our, interestingly enough, our admin piece and the floodplains. They have not approved our ADU or the MBTA zoning ones yet, which that's kind of frustrating for our ADU because the ADU straddles both some of this ones and, you know, the other ones. They had put a hold on it till October. It looks like they were, and this is common, they've done this in a bunch of other towns right now because they've had so many towns that had to have zoning changes done for ADU and MBTA, and they don't have the staff. So floodplain kind of had a time limit to get done, which they did meet, to get that done, which is great. I was surprised they went through all of our admin zoning ones and okayed those. Essentially, and I can send a letter out. They had one small comment on it, administrative. I think they picked up one of those inconsistencies on the table in the bylaw. Good, check that one. But we're going to have to wait till October 13th or 14th before we hear back from them on the rest of our zoning. Once we get that, it's going to have to go. It's going to be posted, and I think it's about 20 days before any appeals or anything have to be heard from people. Then it will probably be sent to general code, and they're the ones that put it on, get it in the format to put it online. So I'm guessing March maybe before we see a publicized updated version. Just in time for the next one.
Right.
Are we at least putting the signed warrant in a place that's going to be obvious, like so that somebody has access to, like in the same, like if someone went to the town website and wanted to look at our bylaws, shouldn't the signed warrant that's not incorporated, a copy of that be linked to that same place?
So I have our proposed zoning bylaw updates on our planning website, on our planning board website. So everything we proposed, what we're doing is on there. But until we get the AGO, to have to retype them all up right now and get them incorporated is going to be difficult.
But I just mean even putting the document itself, not integrating it in, but just having a PDF link so that
the signed warrant had been online, not under planning, because it was all the articles.
Yeah, no, I don't mean under planning. I mean, so like if you go to the website, the town website, there's like a quick link to zoning bylaws or to bylaws, right?
Yep.
And so when you click on that, you're taken right to the whole code with bylaws. I just wonder if there's a place where we can have a link to a PDF added pretty quickly that says, warrant articles approved but not incorporated or something.
I think that would be helpful. I think especially if someone wants to build a 7-foot fence.
Okay. We could try. It's gonna take a lot to go and take out all the italics and the strikes and everything and get that set up if general code's
No,
not
I'm
doing
not
it.
talking about doing that, Heidi. I'm
Oh,
talking about
okay.
just putting the warrant document, which has all the strike throughs
Yeah.
and the italics, just the PDF that exists, just to
Okay.
have a link to it
Yeah,
without
I can
any
I can ask.
formatting.
Yeah.
Because I just think if I was a builder and I wanted to look at the bylaws and I go to the town website and it looks pretty official, and there have been changes that aren't like right there, it's harder to find them or harder to know
Yes.
to look for them.
I think that is fine. I just want to make sure we get the Attorney General ones approved, unless you want me to start putting the other ones up first. I can get a PDF of the ones that have already been approved and get that up.
That would be the one that you would need, because the other ones aren't what they would have to meet the bylaw requirements too. And you
Well, once the Attorney General approves it, doesn't it backdate to the date of town meeting?
It does, but we have to get the Attorney General's approval, and we have to wait 20 days before we can say yes, and it's backdated to the town meeting. But like for me to publicize now, we're actually within the 20-day period right now of the first one. So if someone appeals it right now, it's not, then it could cause a whole nother issue.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't want to belabor this. We can talk offline, Heidi. I was thinking
Yeah.
maybe of like, yeah, let's.
I want to put it up when it's approved,
Yeah.
But
even though it's going to be retroactive. Right now, it's technically not fully approved.
Yeah, it's true.
So if somebody builds something right now that's with the old bylaw, and then the new one gets approved, do they have to change what they've done?
I mean, that's my
Well,
understanding. Is that
technically,
right,
it's not
Heidi?
approved, so
Retroactive, right?
technically it can't, but if they,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I could see that it was approved based on that date, but if you're in this no man's zone, how can I can't see holding somebody accountable to regulations that weren't approved yet.
Well, except they are retroactive. So if someone is applying for something, usually the building inspector right now knows what they're allowing or not allowing. And most of these are pretty minor. I mean, they're not really going to affect too many people's plans. I'm trying to think of an area where it would make a big difference.
Because if what you're saying is that it does, then Steph has a point. The newest bylaws should be there so people could.
Yeah. I guess I could say proposed bylaw still.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
Yeah,
at when I was.
yeah,
Let's
yep.
just, we can take it offline. We can find a way to
Yep.
present it that says these were approved by town vote but have not been approved by the AGO
Yes,
or whatever,
yeah,
right?
right.
Like, so that
Yep.
they can at least see what's in the pipeline.
Yes, I think that works.
Can we just quickly talk about the EA affordable, elderly affordable, before we end the meeting tonight? Unless you have.
Are we done with the miscellaneous items? I mean, is there anything else people think should be on miscellaneous items? I think before we move off of it.
Well, we have a whole other list, so I guess the ask would be for people to look through this list and make sure that I didn't miss anything or that I characterized things appropriately. And then we take the yellow highlights and move them on to keep them in a separate place, along with all the other things that we've talked about doing to the bylaws.
The active list.
It's an active, yes, the active list.
Yeah.
So Heidi, I'll send this to you and you can distribute it to the group.
Sure.
Okay.
Steph, I had one comment on something. You talked about somebody proposing removing the restriction on storing an automobile in a shed.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be careful because the schedule of use regulations talks about a single family home is allowed a garage unit for not more than 3 automobiles. And I've always interpreted that as you can only have covered storage for up to 3 automobiles on a lot, period. So you don't want people to say, oh, I have a 3-car garage and I have 2 more sheds that I keep automobiles in. You don't want to make, you see what I'm saying?
Interesting.
So might have to count.
This one was specific to small accessory structures that are granted smaller setbacks. Or no, wait, is it smaller setbacks or is it no special permits or no permits?
Well, it's less setbacks. The special permits, I think, still have to do. There's a different calculation. Yeah. But I think Rob has a good point, and maybe it's got to be that still following the no more than 3 automobile storage allowed per place. Like if you have a 2-car garage and you have a shed, then okay, you could put a garage, a car in that shed, and that still would make 3. But if you already have a 3-car garage and you put a shed, then he's right. You could, you're saying 4. So maybe it's got to be some limit that, some limit that it would count.
Yeah, you should just look at 3.2 schedule of use regulations in the very first section 1 and just make sure that whatever you do kind of conforms with the obvious intent of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I added that into the comment, but really the point of the yellow highlights is just to say that we need to make the decision, not that a decision was being made. So where it says, for example, change 250 to 256, it's not highlighted yellow because I think we should do that. It's highlighted yellow because we need to discuss it as a board. So just to clarify that. So when you look at it, it's not so much debating the language at this stage, it's just deciding if this is still up for debate or if we're closing it out. Or if it's already been addressed.
Just one generic comment too about the discussion we were having earlier about we don't want to just take stuff out because then we don't know, what it was historically. But I think we got to be careful that I think the way to do that is to sort of bracket it and say, deleted on such and such a time, but it's so that we know that it was there previously, but it isn't anymore. Because if we just leave stuff, I mean, if you just leave definitions in it that aren't really, or you just leave anything in that isn't really relevant anymore, that's a recipe for disaster, because then, it seems like it's part of the bylaw, but it isn't.
Yes, that is what we have tried to do. So the comment was to remove it from the bylaws, and we're saying, no, we need to leave. So I'm looking for the residence district A. So in the list, so this is actually a good case study for this, Jane. Let me just share my screen.
Okay.
Because if you were looking at a district class, right? This is where classes of districts is shown. And if you were looking for, so for residence district M, we wrote added in 1979, changed to EA in 2008. So it still shows up as a line item in this case. Most cases, we just tried to I won't say that. So what we could do instead is say residence district EA amended 2008 to incorporate District M or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's all in the details, right? Like, do we leave it in the list or take it out of the list?
I don't think stuff like that matters so much. It's more like, we've got a definition of apartment. Like one of the comments that I think Mike Jimo had made was, if we're changing the definition of apartment, we should get rid of it. And I hear you don't want to just get rid of it, but you also don't want to have a definition of apartment in there if you're not using that term and instead you're using ADU. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, the more substantive, is this
Yeah,
is this
so we-
relevant to the bylaw anymore or isn't it, you know?
So we changed the term to special permit ADU, and then we said formerly apartment. So the term still shows up if you were to search it, but it's not defined anymore as an apartment. Does that show up? I don't know what screen I'm showing,
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
guys.
showing.
Yeah,
But
you
so-
showed up.
But the
Yeah, so the
definition
intent
is not
here-
the same as apartment though, so that's why, do you see what I mean? So like then we need to define what we mean by special permit ADU, unless it was the same, unless it is currently the same thing as apartment used to be, which it isn't.
Yes. It is only in that we clarified, we made some changes to it, but we took the definition largely, I mean, this has a huge definition underneath it that starts with A. We didn't change 1 through 7. We made minor changes to 8 and 9, right? So it's largely the same with a couple of tweaks. So apartment was the original special permit ADU. We added a clarification that it was 1,200 square feet or less, just to have that front and center. Like, it's really minor, the changes that were made, except that we said only one on a lot. So we did add that in. That's a difference between special permit ADU, but the basis of this was an apartment. So we converted the term apartment to the term special permit ADU and said this was formerly an apartment. And then we made some specific changes, but the most of the apartment definition is intact.
Okay.
It's not perfect in terms of, it would be nice to say, to catalog, to archive an apartment used to be this, where it wasn't limited to one on a lot, right? But
well, that's the kind of thing that maybe the consultant, you know, that could probably just be cleaned up as part of the consulting project. I just hate to have us make more changes. I mean, it's kind of, you know, first we don't even have formal approval of this yet from the Attorney General, and then once we do, then we have to make decisions about what do we want to try to push through now as opposed to part of the bigger project. And you know, it's just it's just part of the general question about how much do we know now and how much do we do as part of the bigger project? Because you know that then it can get then you've got all kinds of parentheticals. Do you know what I mean? Every time we make interim changes, we're just kind of making it more confusing too. So it's a balancing act. That's all. That, you know, which you all know well.
Is that it for miscellaneous?
Sounds like it.
Okay, and sign bylaw we're not discussing tonight.
Right.
So Frank, the next ones I had potential zoning changes. This is more on things that I'm suggesting should be on the active list. And I have down for the elder and affordable. And Steph, are you able to bring up the diagram?
yeah, but you're gonna have to explain it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So,
I'll zoom in first so that we can see
okay.
one.
So this is Meadowbrook Commons. And if you go to the bottom one first.
Okay.
So this is what
Oh,
in 2017 had been the green, the dark green is what is our EA zone. And off to the right, you see kind of like a little handle that goes off on the side.
Right up here.
Yep. That had been added to the EA zone. Initially, when the planning board looked at it, it wasn't there. And then that was added to make the open space calculation work. So EA has its own calculations versus our open space development. They're different. So in 2017, this was what was the approved plan and presented. Then
And what you're saying, Heidi, is that the EA district was expanded at that time to include this?
well, no, there was one vote. So it was created, but during the time the planning board looked at the initial proposal to the planning board did not have that little handle, but by the time it went to vote, that handle was added. So this is what the vote was. This was the EA district created.
The green.
The green, yep, that
Okay.
whole piece. And
Okay.
that's what's on our books today, is this vote. So looking back at meeting minutes and going through, Pulte presented a different plan So they wanted to expand the housing size, and then Toll Brothers came in and wanted to expand the housing size by 20% and talk to the planning board about it. And if you go up to the top one, you'll see that when they expanded the housing footprints, they lost open space. And then at the special town meeting in 23, this is the definitive plan that was presented to town meeting. The planning board held hearings. The planning board approved this plan, which included 20% extra, and that had to go back to town meeting to get the 20% extra size. However, they expanded the EA portion. That handle grew bigger. And they needed that because they needed the open space calculation to help offset the 20% increase of the size. What did not happen, and going back, looking at emails and trying to figure out what happened, was there were notes saying that the planning board would be expanding the EA zone, but no one ever brought it to town meeting. So right now, this is the plan that Toll Brothers is working with, but we don't have that full handle on the right as EA zone, and our EA bylaw requires it to be contiguous EA zone. So we will need to go back to town meeting to add that small piece on the right-hand side to expand the EA zone for this project that has already had an approval from town meeting on the plan. So I don't know how it was dropped or what happened. Maybe some of you who were on the planning board at the time have a explanation of what happened in that time, but all I know is the plan as is, if Toll Brothers submits this right now, we don't have the full zoning compliance. And I'm just bringing it up for people to get on the radar, because I think we have to expand the zone, or they have to decrease the size of the project.
So that lot on the right is
Yep.
part of the site, that whole
It's
thing.
part of, they own that, I mean, well, they can have that as part of Coolidge Crossing. So they don't need that extra extension piece. It'll just remain open space and pathways going through that both Coolidge and Meadowbrook will use. So it's not a question of control of that lot or ownership. It's a different zoning designation.
It's a zoning change. And
Yep.
So Heidi, what do we need to do to make
We will
this?
need to have a warrant article drafted to amend the EA zoning to include this extra spot.
Do we need a hearing for that? Public hearing?
Yep, that will, yes, because any zoning article it requires a public hearing
And a town meeting vote,
and a town meeting vote, right? And
two-thirds.
two-thirds vote, yeah. So the concern I have is Toll Brothers had mentioned to me they were thinking of getting ready to submit the Meadowbrook Commons plan. The planning board could not issue a special permit to them on this, so it would have to be a conditional special permit, is what I would think, to say conditional upon town meeting vote, which won't happen till next April. And then if we look at what happens with the Attorney General, the earliest the Attorney General seems to approve something will be August. That they will only have a conditional permit until next August. I
Heidi,
don't know
what
if that's a problem or not. It's something we need to talk about, but I just wanted to bring it up and have people be aware of it.
do you have a sense of Toll Brothers' time frame on this?
No, I've asked Jeremy to talk with them or contact them.
How long in terms of weeks would it take for us to put something like this together?
For a
You know,
special meeting, you mean, Frank?
If, let's just say we do a special meeting, how long would it take for us to get our stuff done so that if we had to have a special town meeting?
I think there would have to be some type of, I don't know how much of a drawing or plan you need to vote on it for town meeting. I mean, right now we don't know what, like, I don't have anything that shows that portion that's going to be added. I don't know who does that or creates that portion and decides that that is going to be what we register. I can find out. I don't know if it's something that Toll Brothers, since they're going to have both parcels, if they put it in, or if it's vague enough to say, based on this plan that we're expanding it to here. I'll ask town council on that. But otherwise, to have a public hearing and publicize it, we need ideally 4 weeks because of the timing of where the newspapers would fall, and you have to get the notices mailed out to the town. You'll have to do a mailing.
So if the earliest that would happen would be is by the end of the middle of October,
Well, that's for our planning board hearing.
right?
Yep.
And that would also include us doing the warrant.
If well,
The,
if you held,
the warrant happens, and that's what we're going to the public hearing to get their input on the proposed warrant.
right.
Okay, so then we close the public hearing. That's done. Then what has to happen?
We will probably. I'm not sure how. I don't know when the select board would get involved or what would happen because we don't make a decision on when, if this goes to an April town meeting, or is there going to be any, would there ever be a concern of a special town meeting to hold something sooner? And I know that there are limitations that the town meetings can only be held at certain times and have to be so many days away from certain aspects.
Yeah, if
So-
there's not a special town meeting on the calendar for the fall already, I would be
Yeah, there isn't.
surprised if it could get pulled together for the fall in a short time frame. And the other consideration is that the quorum warrant article did not pass at the last town meeting. So while it's somewhat reliable to get 100 people to annual town meeting in the spring, calling a special town meeting on short notice in the fall might be difficult to get quorum.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that have to be looked into. Number one, what does this mean to Toll Brothers? Toll Brothers might be fine and say, you know what, we're fine with April because, you know, maybe we're not moving along with, you know, we don't have an intermissible agreements yet. That their timing might be okay.
So we should kind of look at a time frame. I hear what you're saying, Steph, but if the middle end of, well, it can't be the end of November because that's Thanksgiving. Let's say the middle of November is the goal time to have a special annual town meeting. That might give at least the select board the time to pull that together and start publicizing it, getting it all worked, their part of it worked out and organized anyway.
If there's any appetite for them to do it. I mean, they're gonna have to discussions. First off, our town clerk is retiring as of this next week. So that's gonna be a big issue. And there is a cost.
Well, overcoming those issues.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm not. This project is important enough to our town that I don't think the cost issue is really going to hold it back. So really the issue is, can we make the timing and do we need to do this? So if Toll Brothers said August, after our Springtown meeting is fine, and the time frame for that is fine, then we don't want or need to push this. But if they are saying, oh my goodness, no, we want to get moving on this before that, then
we look into it.
we don't want to lose the contractor because of this issue.
Right.
So I can't guarantee what they're going to do, but I have spoken, and they are aware that we might need this. So we just need to give them further information and impetus to make it happen or not. So that's my
You talked to the
question.
select board, Frank, you're saying?
I did. Just one member. That doesn't mean it's the whole board. No, the whole board is going to vote for it, but it'll at least be something that'll be brought up and discussed. But if there isn't a convincing argument, then they're not going to do it, and they're not going to spend the money, and they're not going to put the effort in. But if it's a major issue for Toll Brothers, then we put them on notice anyway.
Right. No, I think that's that's the whole thing, is just bringing it up to the board to let you know this is where we stand. And it's up to get direction from Toll Brothers now as far as how important it is.
So who should talk to Jeremy about moving that step forward? You want me to do that? You do that? Who does it?
Yeah, I mean, I've already mentioned it to Jeremy that it needs, and I feel it should be at his level, not me reaching out to Toll Brothers. So it's in the works, but I don't have any information or any updates to say that this is where they stand. But I'll follow up with Jeremy and try and keep on top of it to,
Maybe
it's
get a
important.
time frame. Because if we do ultimately have to do a special town meeting, then we need to know sooner than
Right.
later.
Right. We'll kind of need some answer by the next planning board meeting as to, are we moving forward? Either
Well,
way, there
that's
will
our
be
time frame, and somebody else may need even a shorter time frame than that.
right,
But,
right. But either way, I think we will need a town meeting vote on this.
Right, it's just which one, if we have a
Right.
special one or the spring one.
Right. So that's all I had on the EA. Is just more of a heads up and an update. The solar districts, I have a packet that I put up on the public packet. It's on the clean energy law, and it's something we've talked about, that the state again is changing how energy is going to be permitted in towns, and the state's taking over a lot of the large systems, and they're trying to look for more comprehensive permit concepts and trying to streamline it. I'm not going to go into it tonight as far as what's there, because once again, regulations won't be finalized until March. And it's just very frustrating that the state comes up with these things and our timing is just not good. One thing that it does bring up to me to have the board kind of consider too, most towns have two town meetings, where the fall meeting tends to be the zoning articles. And it's probably because the state seems to put things out, in March or April, and that the ones that have the fall town meetings are able to accommodate it at a more reasonable pace than I think we are, because we're stuck with kind of going a Band-Aid version on the ADU and then coming back again the next time. And I think I'm concerned we're gonna have the same thing with this clean energy, that, yeah, we have to do a Band-Aid because we don't have a town meeting again for another year.
But if you look at just on this particular one, if you look at the draft proposal that you sent out,
Yeah,
you look at the first page, the goals between now and 2050 are huge growths in areas of energy storage, wind, solar, and grid upgrades. I mean, it is massive. So when those changes come, there's going to be some significant momentum to make that happen, because there's a huge change in a short amount of time.
yeah. So it's there to be a continued discussion, and I kind of want to keep it on our active list to kind of see what, if they come up with some sample bylaws, I'll pass it on and we'll get information. But I just, again, want it on our radar for next town meeting right now.
And so Heidi, I'm just looking at the slides, like slide 7 says September 2025, which is now. File draft regs. Oh, this is the state's timeline. Okay.
Right, state.
Sorry. So
Right.
what is our obligation as a town for a Band-Aid bylaw?
See how they say by March 21st, 2026, final regs published? That's what's going to give us to know what they think we should be doing.
But we don't have a requirement to pass a bylaw before then, right? So we might be able to wait until then, or
We might be able to wait. I just want to keep an eye on seeing how their regulations are evolving.
yeah, right.
And that's if they decide that they want to go the comprehensive permit route, we might just want to put some bylaw that's general enough as saying, if you have, that we're doing a clean energy bylaw, that is a comprehensive permit. If someone's applying for it, we're going to do a streamlined process. It might be as simple as that. But I just think it's something, and I'm happy if someone else wants to follow it here. That would be great.
That'll be me.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank.
And maybe we can wait another year. And then also in the for our solar districts, something that has come up is that we actually have 2 solar districts in this town. I wasn't aware of the first one because it was not on any of our maps and it didn't seem to exist in the documentation we were looking at. But the landfill on North Main Street was actually approved to be allow solar. So it's got a different name from our other solar voltaic zoning district. So we currently on the books have 2 different solar district names. And it's only slight names, but they are different. And town council said we should probably combine them so that we have solar zoning that shows that it's 2 different areas, but have one name as opposed to 2 different names for solar districts. So that I'm putting that on our town meeting as a cleanup for next year.
That seems relatively minor,
Yeah,
but it needs to be done.
right, right.
So
Sad
Heidi,
part is
where,
we had all, good.
where are you keeping, where are you keeping this list? Is it the same spreadsheet that we've been looking at?
I haven't added anything to it right now because I was going to see if you guys are okay with me adding the EA and the solar district to that list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have, since we can't use like a shared storage site, it just gets a little complicated to make sure that we have the latest copy.
Yeah,
So if you're adding something, can you send it to me and Frank, just so we have,
yes.
so between us, we all have the latest copy. Actually, we already have solar bylaw update per new information and guidance, because Frank was tracking like the studies that were coming out about the
Yeah.
solar districts. So we could just add like a sub thing to that about combining the 2 existing districts.
Sounds good.
And so I'm looking at the list now just because I was curious, Heidi. The comments that you compiled in that Word doc,
Yes,
those were from the advisory members as well as Michael Newman, right?
yes. And Mike Giamo, Marion had a comments.
Mike Giamo, yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
But also, but I'm just saying, like the ones that Michael Newman like verbalized at town
Yes,
meeting, I think you
yes.
got a written copy.
That's
Okay,
it, they're
so
in
make sure
there.
they were on there.
Yep, they're in there. They were
Okay.
mainly the ones about the 250 and 256. It was those construction ones.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, any other discussion on the solar district or battery energy storage or any of that? I think we finished with the EA. So are there any reports with any other boards or entities? Hearing none. Town planner report?
Just I posted the stormwater clean copy of what we approved under our public documents. I circulated, I didn't hear anything back from people, so I'm going to turn that in over to Jeremy to submit to the EPA so that we can be compliant with them. And that again was a round 1 where we will be coming back with fine tuning that for next town meeting. And the other is we are going to be having a tree hearing. Eversource has submitted an application to take down a large number of trees on Washington Woodland and Curve Street. So we'll be getting that list together, and it's going to be a scenic road and public shade tree combined hearing. And that'll be set for October 7th.
Okay.
That's it.
Who's our tree warden? Still, who's our tree warden?
We have an interim one, and it's Sean.
Okay.
We'll be getting the whole list. They'll be putting up the numbers. And
And will Sean do what has been done by the tree warden in the past, which is to take photos of the tree, or maybe that was Addie May in the past, but
Addie
someone took
May did it.
photos.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to make decisions without looking at every single tree.
And this is something I'm going to send the list out, but if we have 40 trees to look at, I don't think we should be looking at every tree in this, and maybe you want to, but it's hopefully asking people to drive by and look at the trees that are tagged, if we give you the streets.
Well, it'd also be good to hear from somebody that knows trees better than and are professional in it to see if they're experiencing any kind of decay or that they could bring it to our attention. Something you can't always see it from the outside, but they're eating up from the inside, and they're so.
I mean, will Sean?
If that's Sean, that should be Sean then that presents and does a narrowed down list. Yes, these trees. Yes, these trees are the ones that we should be arguing about or negotiating about.
Right, because he's told me he doesn't agree with all the trees. So.
Okay. So, who needs to talk with Sean about that happening? That narrowing down the list and presenting the list at our next meeting.
I can talk with Sean and Addie May to see if they can come up with it, but it might be that, Eversource's application, if they want to submit all these trees, it will have to be done at the hearing. Unless they agree to drop some off before the list. If they agree to whittle down the list they submit, that's fine. But if they don't, then every tree will have to be on there, and Sean will voice his opinion at our hearing. So I guess I don't see how we're going to get away from not talking about each tree.
Well,
it might just be quick, like, okay, I'm okay with 1, 3, 7, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
And let's talk about 5, 6, and 9 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe what I can try and do is get pictures of those ones that Sean's contesting.
Yes, yeah, that would kind of help to facilitate a more streamlined conversation. Okay. All right, is there any other business? Hearing none. I make a motion to end our meeting of the planning board for September the 2nd at 9:10 p.m. Do I have a second?
second.
Is it moved and seconded? All those in favor, Steph,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well.